Morning Scrum with Govind Davis.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited to be back on the screen. It's been a crazy week, and not nearly as much time as I would have liked to spend with the agents recording, but made some really good progress on my personal front using my AI case management system that has been helping me. I had a hearing this week and I got. I don't want to say I got scolded by I got corrected by the judge to make sure that for at least a few things, she said basically didn't say don't use AI. She just said do not use AI for these forms. So I think she's acknowledging that she understands I'm using AI, that it's creating a lot of value, because I think she can see that. She also is like, don't just spam filings, because she probably realizes it's like once you figure out how to do this, you can file all kinds of things quickly and easily. So she kind of laid out some ground rules, but it was really helpful, and the hearing went well, I think, overall, and the AI prep was super, super valuable. So, I'm going to go with definitely happy that worked out well. And today, what I'm going to really try to get into this idea of dev and production, and what are you building with AI, and kind of what what is your development, what's dev. I should probably put dev to prod here, but what is production in AI world. There's I'll tell you one thing for sure is that I've noticed this regression. There was this time, you go back many years where software would get released and it barely worked, right? It was buggy, it's horrible, but it was valuable enough that you wanted to use it, that you're I'm willing to put up with all this stuff. And that's what's happening right now, is that it's the LLMs and the AI features. It's worth it to put those out there, knowing that there might be some user frustration and bugs, because it's better to ship and be fast. But it changes the equation a lot, and it changes it for myself. What do I expect my tools to do? What's the level of perfection that I need, that I expect, versus hey, I just want to get the capability as fast as I can, and I'm willing to accept all these limitations. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what my workflow is, which is, could be different from many different people, but, I have this very kind of fluid situation where I'm hey, I'm using AI to work, and I want to basically have the tools, and I need them to get the results. And, on the front end, it's okay, let's go advanced frontier stuff so that it can do these advanced things, but it's slow. That is really the big trade-off, is that you're going to pay a penalty. Sure, there is also the cost factor. Right now I'm not really running into that hurdle, but you're going to pay a factor in terms of time, because if you're using Codex, Codex, even 5.5 at I'm using medium usually, it's still going to, every request is going to take quite a while. It's sending a lot of context, it's thinking a lot, and it's going to get really great answers. But is that what you need for every message you're going to send somebody on LinkedIn? Even if you're moving between 5 or 8, however many sessions you want, it's still, if you can sit down for 10 minutes and crank out, a whole bunch of replies, it's a lot more efficient. And so that's why I'm starting to push back towards when I recently kind of moved more to the session-based approach. It made me step back a lot and work more in dev. And I needed to do that because I needed to really upgrade my processes. But now I'm okay, I want to harden those processes and move them into things that feel more like production environments. And I'm going to show what that means today. So we're going to bump into that. We're going to dive into that, and I'm excited to kind of get going. And before I get into that, it's what is dev and production? I really don't know what this chart is. It looks cool. I just asked my content producer to Marty, my content agent, to put together a cool image that kind of represented, our environment and dev into production. And I will say, that it's probably going to be better to show everything. But what happens is, in an especially an agentic environment, you're working with the agents as a human being, right? And you're interacting, and there's all these different levels of agents. And so what happens is, okay, I'm going to interact with something that has, that's not, when I say production, it's not production ready for a particular use case, right? It's broad, has a broad set of capabilities like Codex, just at a high level. And you're asking it to code, but I'm also asking it to do the work that I need to get done. But eventually, like, what I want to do is I need to feed that into something that's like actually like a more repeatable process, right? So I'm like, okay, and I'm just going to dive in and really show that, because it's actually hard. Like, this diagram does not really say much. It's a pretty picture. I actually just really look at it and I'm like, I don't even know what it's saying. So, all right, we're going to go into the real world here. And let's see, I actually have to fade this in over here. And okay, so this is what I would call a like my current production environment. And, is this suitable for like a product? No, I don't think this is ever going to be a product. Like, that's not my goal here. But my goal is to have something that is really fast and lets me get my work done. So, Kanban board here, like really basic things that I like to do with it are, move it around. So I have a controls for that. It all works. I can go in, I can look at the card. I don't really use it much. I really basically use this just to kind of say, hey, what am I working on today? How do I prioritize? And I can just message Susie, and I can, and it's all kind of bound together. And what this is doing is it's using the Grok, not GROK, but GROQ. It's a low cost, speed oriented LLM, and it gives me the ability, and after a lot of testing, I found that this is actually really effective for what's called tool calling, right? And tool calling is just going to be things like, hey, Susie, move this card. Hey, but no, I'm actually going to try some stuff because I just recently moved back to this, and I'm going to talk to it and say like, hey, let's move something around or whatever, right? So, hey, Susie, let's move PL 1064 to now. Okay, so I'm going to give her a voice command, and boom, it's like done, right? Is it done? Yes, it is. There it is, right? There's 1064. It moved. It was like instant. And if you pop over to your like more advanced agents, that's going to take a long time, right? So actually the what I'm working on today, really the objective is around Tim's environment. So I've got a lot of messages and LinkedIn things that I need to kind of get up to speed on, right? I've got, 55 things. And I've been working, the challenge I've had, I'm trying to push myself. And actually what's happening is I'm not really catching up because, doing these things, and some of these are really low value interactions, like this unknown inbound, like I've got to research it. I got to figure out what's going on. And so, I'm like, all right, in order to get productivity out of this, I can't be just issuing a command in Codex, going off and doing something else, coming back, doing that all day long. I'm only getting through 5 or 10 of these a day. I need to like really catch up, right? And how do I do that? So I'm actually going to pop real quick. Let's see. I should be able to go here. And all right, I get what I'm going to do. It's going to go now. We're going to go to session. And it already changes right there. So that's perfect. So, we're going to look at the same thing, right? And this is in the session product. And the difference here is, I still have the chat conversation with Tim available, but I'm probably not going to really use it here. What I'm doing is I'm here in Codex, and I'm going to look at this and say, okay, I can issue commands here, but what I need to do is start to say, all right, let's harden that, like, as I figure out the things that I want to do, right? Like a draft, a message, enrich, or whatnot, right? And so as I figure these things out, what I'm saying is, hey, like, okay, we have to draft a message, right? So let's actually, and then once they're figured out, then I say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to, this is deployed now to this kind of pseudo production environment that I have. And and then I'm going to run it over there. And the other interesting thing is, like, this morning, when I was really thinking about, like, hey, how do I do this? And this is right here. This is a special set, kind of like agent that I have called DevMaster, and DevMaster is where I do like any kind of like fixing the dev process environment stuff. And my Ubuntu is degraded. Actually, I'm not sure that it's having a problem right now, but anyway, that's fine. But yeah, so Command Central DO, see what I was trying to think about, like, okay, where do I run my production, right? And I've gone through like really different patterns on that. And what happened is, you start to realize, okay, and especially in my case, like there's these real machine limitations that happen and machine level problems that you can create, and you have to manage these. And it's like, SaaS and the way that software went, it kind of took all this out of the equation. And I'm going to totally like go off on a tangent, but it's worth talking about. It's like, what happened was, for me, like, if you look at like compute power, essentially, is that the needs for like a business for most use cases were easily served by like whatever desktop or laptop you had, because they just weren't doing all that much, right? It got to the point where you're like, the kinds of things you would do all day long for business, like even manipulating lots of data in Excel or other things like that, it just didn't consume that. It's not consuming that much of your actual computer resources. So there's no real like, like the need for like this dramatic escalation of compute power didn't really, it kind of tabled off, right? It's like, okay, well, you could get a 5-year-old machine. It's like, I have this, clunky old like Dell box, and I had to upgrade the RAM, but processing, it's fine, right? And it works okay. But then what happens is, you're like, okay, and because I'm using all this SaaS and I'm going out and I'm, using other people's tools and it's all in the cloud, and you're like, you really don't need a powerful machine, right? I mean, it's great to have, but it's not a big thing. It's not a huge limitation unless you're getting to video, some graphic production. Otherwise, just about every business thing you can do doesn't require a lot of effort. But now, okay, I have this environment where I'm running Windows desktop and I have a WSL distribution here, and the more apps, right? I'm running my dev app. This DevMaster has its own port, so it's its own little server, and I'm allocating 24 gigs of RAM to the WSL. And it's running and doing its thing, and it can often, it can just really suck up the resources. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, like, my 32 gigs of RAM is okay, and my processor is just barely, it's overheating, right? I'm like really utilizing the resources here. So the question then becomes, do I want to set up another, like a local prod, which gives you some value and speed and performance, but is it worth the trade-off? I'm like, not really, because I don't want to be like tying up another server on this machine when I have an 8 gig server, and it's actually really, really fast. So I mean, that's the key, is that there's these two different tiers, right? You're like, well, tier one is flexibility and speed of, let's say, development, right? Meaning, like, I don't expect to do commands quickly, like, and that's what's going to happen. Like, if I asked Tim to say, Codex, to say, hey, Tim, send this message, it's going to take a while. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and issue a command here. We'll just show it in the Codex side. So let's do some research on Amira here, which is TD4024, and think about an appropriate response. Like, I feel like she's kind of like a good connection, but it's a company in India, kind of, a dev shop, and, probably not a buyer, but maybe someone we could get an email and, put them in the mailing list, and, just kind of keep them like a good keep in touch kind of response. So, I mean, the one thing is I can issue this command here, and it's a pretty complex command, and Codex is going to work on it, right? It's going to think, it's going to do a bunch of stuff, and it's not going to really be like bound by the limitations of what the application has, because it can go out and do like kind of whatever it wants, even though it has an understanding, right? So it's like, hey, I'm going to get the CRM, and it's going to go through like this really thoughtful process and come up with a really great response. The thing is, do you really need all this overhead for every action you take? And if you do, you're going to end up, the only reason to do it here is that essentially you're sort of prototyping, right? You're like saying, I'm going to do this in Codex, see how it works, figure out what it needs to do to go, execute like and build a good response. And then I'm going to sort of codify and harden that into, a script or that you could call it, a tool set, or the AI calls it various different things, but it's going to be a capability essentially that Tim has to go in and run. So then here you go, like here's the reply. This one actually worked pretty fast, but you could still see like we're talking about. I'm going to let it run because it created this, but it's doing some other things, right? And you can see it's still thinking. 1:22, right? You probably can't see that super well, but I can. It's it's going to be okay. Enrichment came back. Okay, that's cool. Got an email for her, right? And this whole thing's going to take a couple minutes probably by the time it's done, right? We're at 1:39, and okay, oh wow, it's like actually updated the content a little bit. And the other thing is it doesn't always, actually it's funny because Codex, because when you do really good tool calling and binding, that's the other thing, is you want a consistent result. And what's missing here is I have some rules that it's supposed to use around adding spacing. And it's funny because that only sometimes works when Codex does it, because it has to do with like, okay, what did Codex do? What did it flow through? And you can see like the total amount of time was 2 minutes and 11 seconds. You're like, in 2 minutes and 11 seconds, like I could have just put this message together, right? But what you're doing here is you're trying to come up with like, how do I come up with the pattern so it produces, some good things. I'm just going to actually fix this because I like to have it look like this, right? I just think that looks better. It's supposed to do that. And this is perfectly fine, right? So we're going to go ahead and this looks good. What is actually odd is it doesn't actually even have the latest UI, which is really interesting. So that's interesting. That is super interesting. Somehow we have like some regression in this actually. Interesting. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and send this, and let's go ahead and queue this up and send it. All right, so there we go. And, cool. It's going to send it, it got it done. But like, okay, this took a while, right? So that's where it kind of comes down to this situation where that was great. I mean, I saw what happened and I figured this out, but I actually kind of already know this. So that's why I'm like, all right, in order for me to catch up, I need to be like, moving quite a bit faster. And so that's where we're going to pop over and show like what happens when, when this gets moved into a different environment. So now I'm no longer using Codex. I'm not going to be able to do everything. So this is just like spam, right? It's not going to waste time. Let's find one where I actually might, a recruiter, more recruiter type stuff. Oh, Tony Robbins, there you go. Like most of this is just junk. Okay, here's somebody I connected with, and okay, so let's copy this. I'm gonna just first take a look at what's up with this person. Well, actually, let's just go back here. Let's go back to the top and follow my. All right. Yeah, just LinkedIn Hiring Pro. So this one, I'm just saying, This is just spam. So first I want to see if does it even know what I'm looking at, right? It should. Yeah, there it went. It just said, got it, marked as spam, and submitted. I'm not sure what that means by submitted, but let's just keep going. Yeah, let's mark this as spam so we never have to see these kind of messages from this guy again. You know, I don't know if it's gonna, there it goes, marked as spam, done. Okay, I'm not waiting. It's like, I mean, it's pretty, let's see, just seeing this message. Sure, I would welcome a conversation. Oh. This is a weird thing. This is like also some kind of junk. Yeah, this is just junk. Let's go. But that's the thing. You don't want to spend a minute. Okay. Also just spam. See, these are a couple of key things, right? So what happens is, what makes this work, right? So, after I sent 100 messages or so, I worked out different patterns that are effective, right? So I know, hey, spam is one. And also it's bound, meaning like, or it's when I say bound, it's aware, right? So there's this thing where when I select it and it's highlighted green, it knows that's what I'm looking at, right? Do I want to talk to a recruiter? I don't know, talent acquisition. Probably not, but you never know. Here, let's just do we'll see how Tim does it. Let's let him know that I am interested in, let's say, contract type work. I have some availability for AI building and growth advisory. So, I mean, I don't know if he finds stuff that's more fractional, but always open to ideas. Let's see what this comes back with. Now, no guarantee this works because I just literally tried deploying it. Let's see how long. I should have how long did Tim think? Let's see. Refresh the thread first. I don't see the draft artifact loaded. That's interesting. All right, so actually this is good because it broke, right? So I'm going to copy this and say, all right, so I have to go back here and I have to switch this. And there it is, and I'm going to say this. I had the item selected and it was on the it's on the draft screen, so I'm not sure when I use the Tim chat directly I get this response. I'm trying this in the 3060 deployment on the prod server. So this process is a little slow, and it's funny. I went through this so many different times, and there's no really fast way through this, right? It's almost like production testing. You're okay, I try a real use case and it doesn't really work. And what you want to do is try. You don't want to spend all day long. You can spend a lot of time on this because you're going from, hey, I put something that I would say is now functioning. I'm using it. It doesn't really work, right? But it's fast and it does. I do 10 things and one suddenly breaks, right? So then you're okay, now I have to go fix that. But what happens is, as you got to fix these things. Yeah, there's something broken where it's not seeing something, right? It's there's an execute work. Anyway, there's some logic there, and you got to fix it and then do another sort of pseudo prod deployment, right? But that, I mean, that's it. This is, this is AI development, right? It's like build, test, build, test, build, test, or like, you know, develop it, build it, test it, develop it, build it, test it. And, build speed matters and the process. Actually, one of the things I did that I think is really helpful is like I separated the back end from the front end, right? So meaning that like the database and the cron, that's like its own separate build. So, but you get it like because these aren't database updates, right? These are just like UI, like app logic updates, and so you can get a much you want to get a fast build on this. So it's still running. Okay, so it made it fixed. Let's see, that should stop 3060. It's running. What I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, and after this, oh, it is. This is actually weird. Like now, this came back and it's right. I wonder if it was the record or something we were looking at. It was just stale. It's very strange. But anyway, okay. Let's see. Can't verify to 3060 directly. I'm just going to actually reload this just to be. You can also see how quickly this comes up, right? I mean, relative to that whole dev environment with Next.js sitting on them is great for like dev, right? But it's going to be slow. So I'm just going to actually copy paste the same command. See what Tim can figure out here. Did it get deployed properly? All these things, right? And, all right, so it actually didn't work, but I'm going to go back. Did you actually deploy this to 3060? I'm just getting the same response. So I actually don't really want to use this to deploy. Okay. We need to redeploy 3060. So this is another facet for me, and I think I'm trying to get more disciplined about this. I feel like people like serious software operations that are moving at a little slower pace, like they have this kind of control, and it's just kind of what I'm like adding a little more discipline for myself. So like I actually kind of just haven't really let the other agents know about this whole 3060 thing, and I think it's almost better. It's like you just build in dev, and then when I want to deploy this, I just come over here and I say let's do the deploy or the build, because actually building takes like it's like a special thing. It takes time. It takes like I don't know. Like I said, if you're doing software development all the time, like this is just common sense. But if you're someone who's like more like, hey, I'm business guy getting into coding, or you're just sort of thinking about this, like, there's like this really important thing to understand, like what's happening at any given time. And you're like, hey, I'm, just making updates in an app. And then, hey, I'm deploying that to this, like, I'm building it and deploying to this production environment or whatever it is. It has to go through a build process. I run things through GitHub, all this stuff, and it just takes time, right? And you're like, okay, I got to wait for this, and I got to check it, and that's why there's this kind of tension, right? It's like, how much do I develop? Because the more you develop, and then you put into this production, the more likely it's just not going to work, right? And then you get back into like, okay, how frequently am I building, and what's the pace, right? Where's the bottleneck here? Where's the where's the slowdown? Because if I build 100 things, or so I develop 100 things, build it, deploy production, and I got to test all that, and how many times am I gonna have to rebuild it? Or do I do a couple of things, or do I just always like one thing and then build? But there's this kind of pacing that actually is pretty significant. So what Tim has stopped because I don't want Tim to do the build, and that's fine. That's kind of weird. It's spinning. That's actually like a session topic thing here. You can see Tim is spinning because I interrupted him. So like it doesn't know. It's fine. I'll deploy it using Dev Master. So I think it's better actually that you only make changes in Dev. I'll probably clear that up. Marnie wants my attention because actually Marnie is controlling OBS right now. So she's got, I'll just show that for a second. Yeah, there was some kind of, oh yeah. So, I use Marnie, she has like an OBS connector, so she did the like that image and like fixing the stuff here, like where my camera is like showing like this, so you can see that she did all this. Like, it's actually really hard to get these curved edges, and like for me to figure this out in OBS without AI would have been like just a huge pain. Like it seems like it's a small thing, but you're like, okay. So anyway, there she goes. All right, there's Dev Master's back. Okay, built it. Cool. I like it. Do I need to refresh? Probably. It gets down into it. So let's try it one more time. All right, I'm actually going to switch back, and we will see if we can get it to work. Uh-oh. No, we're going to have to think more. It's still not going. It's actually like a perfect use case for Morning Scrum about like real life AI experience. You're like, okay, could you refresh the thread? I see. So I can load the draft artifact. There actually used to be a let's just draft it. See what happens. Let's just try this here. Oh yeah, that worked pretty well, and you can see how fast, right? I mean, it actually like happened so fast. I was like, did it actually do anything? But it was a little different. So thanks for reaching out. I'm currently exploring contract type opportunity where I can contribute to AI building and growth advisory initiatives. If you have any fractional or project based roles in line with that focus, yeah, this is cool, right? Like it actually looks good. You can see it followed like, the spacing patterns. So it is actually a good example. What's kind of weird here actually like is that after I saved that, it like went to this other kind of UI. So this is kind of there's stuff. This is broken, but anyway, my job for today, I'm not going to do all of this on Morning Scrum, but the rest, my main focus today, like now that I've recorded Morning Scrum, it's just to take this process and like harden it. And I've been through this like a bunch of times. Like it takes some real work. But the thing is that this is where I got to be honest with you, this is like the payday, right? Getting Codex to do something for you, when I say it's easy, it's like, it is kind of easy. Like it will do anything, but it also takes a long time. And when you say, when I want to do the same thing 50 times, it starts to get really, really old, right? Hey, Codex, do this, and it thinks, and and so you want to harden these experiences and use the right model or environment to execute these, where it's just fast, So, at the end of the day, it's like, create the clay, right? With Codex, right? Start to shape it like, whatever, whatever, get your app mesh, and you shape it enough, and then you really fine tune it down into something productive. If you don't go through that, like shaping and, chiseling things out, it doesn't really, most cases it just doesn't become really productive. And I can see on a big scale where if companies are saying like, oh yeah, we're using AI and we're just using Codex. It's like, okay, fine, but it isn't going to be efficient. It's like use Codex to re-engineer, rethink processes, shape them, optimize them, and then execute them in these new ways, and they become really, really efficient. So I'm like, hey, this is great. it's missing the buttons the way it should be. So I have some things to fix, but let's see if it works. Let's schedule and send this. Let's schedule and send this. Boom. Let's see what happens. It went. It says sent. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it probably didn't work right. It should show up here in schedule. But again, there's only a few more things I'm going to have to fix. But, my job, I'm not going to wait, spend a bunch of time on Morning Scrum trying to fix every little thing. But this is, real life. Hey, how am I taking this process over here? So actually, I will show, let me pop in here and actually, let's see. Okay, I want to go back to session. And there it is. Okay, so let's pop into session. All right, so I'm going to be like, hey, okay. All right, so I just finished the draft. There were a lot of issues. What's kind of weird is that it still had the same issue, but then I actually hit the draft button after it drafted it. Then I was able to make edits, so that worked well. But then when I went to, actually the UI then changed, so it lost the kind of draft enriched schedule UI. I think after there's a draft that occurs, well, I guess it could just be like a redraft, so it could still update the draft. That's fine. But it should keep the same UI look. It actually had the where the rail was not right. So something weird happened there in the next artifact that came up. And then when I sent it, it just says sent again, like the other record we had an issue with before. It should show up in the LinkedIn queue. So let's take a look at that record and make sure we fix the process for Tim, so that when we redeploy this, it's got all the right workflow. Yeah, so this is, it's been a while, a week or two since I've been doing this kind of hardening exercise, because I just really moved away from prod, was I'm going to re-engineer all of this in this dev thing. And then I got to the point where I'm like, all right, I have to go back to having it like a real app, not just using Codex, because I can't, sure, could I just sit, because the actual experience of doing the same thing over and over again using Codex is just way too slow. So, I'm going to get finished building this, optimizing it. And, and again, I've done this a few times already with Tim. It's just that what happens is the fundamentals have changed. So I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. But now that I actually, to be honest with you, this approach now that I'm using feels like the kind of final approach. I don't think I'm going to blow up my whole dev process. I think the value of each time that I've gone back to the drawing board has been worth it, but I have a hard time seeing that it's going to change significantly from this, meaning having this session-based dev environment with Codex, building the app where modularly, where I can see, I'm looking at Tim, I'm using the high intelligence to figure out and kind of shape the Tim agent, and then moving Tim into an environment where a much faster, lower level, more tightly bound agent is basically doing all the work and tool calling. To me, that's the optimal approach to getting to high performing agents. So that kind of dev to production flow. And of course, really advanced engineering, or advanced engineering teams and other things are going to come up with various different approaches and different ways to do this, all kinds of tooling and other things. But to me, this feels like the model, or the way that this is the kind of ideal approach to this for very so anyway, I'm excited to share this with you. And let's see, I'm gonna have to pop over, what do we want to talk? Okay, session, yeah, I do want to talk about session. We have a spotlight on it, and a little bit more and because you can see it's the thing you're always going to be seeing session. And the whole thing here is I can run lots of agents in parallel. I don't ever lose the thread. Like this morning, I came in, computer restarted. The startup for my days, a couple minutes, just getting agents back online. I haven't lost anything. I pick up right where I left off. So that's really the key. And what's the session product? It's basically CLI terminals. I've right now I'm focused. It's bound to Codex, but you could use this with Claude. Really, any of these LLMs. And what makes it work? Durable tabs, right? You have you know Windows app with tabs, and that tab is basically the container. That's the conceptual container for your agent. You can see what they're doing, thinking, and it keeps a whole bunch of rich metadata so that you don't, you really, I mean, honestly, like it really does pick up, right? Hey, right where I left off. Hey, we were just working on X, and let's do the next thing, right? Or Marnie, let's go back to OBS. Oh yeah, like she's got all this knowledge because I'm doing this same repeated work with her in Codex again. Eventually, am I gonna move that to tool calling? Maybe, right? I mean, controlling OBS is pretty complicated. Maybe it's always going to require Codex and be kind of a custom experience. But Marnie's already building more things, more scripts. Like today, when she was setting up the title screen, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to write a script so that because we're doing this title screen update and just changing the text all the time, so that way it's just faster and quicker every single time." So that's a really awesome thing, and having that persistence and the development of the agents as you go along. So as they do something, they get better, and this is me. My little ship of Strattegys. At some point, I'm just going to record a CTA here, but my goal is to really impact the AI world, share, help people grow with growth-enabled AI, help people build, kind of use my skills to help build something amazing. And then, the biggest thing for me is really the website, the articles, and spotlighting other AI products. So hopefully we'll start to get, already starting to build a queue of people who are doing really great things with AI so that I can share their stories. So excited to get this one out.